Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Football Inc. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things that you love. I'm here with Johnny H, of course, part of the channel. We got some transfer news, views, and clues for you from all around the Premier League and sometimes out into Europe a little bit. And we've got lots to get through today. It feels like the winger market is heating up. We've got some stories about Garnacho, about Jamie Gittens, about Bryan Mbeumo. We've got stories about also Benjamin Sesko at Arsenal. We've got stories regarding Thomas Tuchel. And we've got loads of things to talk about. Johnny, how are you, my man? How are you?
I'm all right. We're overrun. It's Sunday, so it's the day where they fill up the headlines of links and transfer talk, and we'll go through them all. Transfer deadline closes on Tuesday for the likes of Chelsea and Manchester City and all the other clubs in Europe who are looking to secure some players. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of deals sneak over the line el pronto. But what we then 3 weeks, I don't understand why they didn't just leave it open, Sean. It seems absolute madness, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I feel like it's giving an advantage to the teams that are in the Club World Cup that are already getting a financial advantage from participating in it. So, yeah, so it seems a little bit unnecessary to me. Guys, before we get into the transfer news, views, and clues for you, please do us a favour. If you're watching this for the first time and you haven't already, smash the subscribe on the channel. Hit the like button as you take your shoes off. And, yeah, let us know your thoughts by dropping some comments. If you are from a different fan base, not from Tottenham, we're not obviously sticking to Tottenham here, then let us know where you're from and let us know your thoughts on the various sort of stories that we're going to bring to your attention. First one out of the gate, Johnny, is Kepa going to Arsenal potentially. For £5 million, it says the story.
I've got to be honest with you. Arsenal just do not mess around with their goalkeepers, do they? I remember when Leno got injured for Arsenal playing Brighton. And I thought, that's them done. That's Arsenal done. They've got the top keeper and they wheel out Martinez, who was even better. And then they get rid of Martinez and you think, well, you know, they're done now. We're getting rid of him. In comes Ramsdale. Then in comes Raya. And now they've got Kepa as a backup. I mean, listen, Kepa, I remember the game against Spurs v Bournemouth this season, when they were cruising 2-0 and Kepa made two absolutely howlers to give them the game back in. He can have his magic moments, shot stopping, but then he can have absolute calamities. So, you know, for $5 million this day and age, it's nothing. He's still young enough. It's probably a very good move for them. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, in 2018, he signed for £72 million to Chelsea, right? No. And now, what is it, 6-7 years later? Obviously, you know, not good enough to be Chelsea's starter, but as a backup, you know, not a bad goalkeeper, got a bit to prove. And look, Arsenal are just triggering a £5 million release clause here, so it's not like it's overly complicated. It's just a triggering. And so, from what I've read in the news, there, it seems like they've been impressed with his willingness to come in and be second fiddle, but fight for his place. I mean, look, a £5 million, if it's a £5 million release fee, then I don't know how that kind of figured itself out. I'm not too familiar with the situation. I'm guessing his contract was extended and then that clause was added after the fact. But £5 million, not a lot of money for a goalkeeper that, when he wants to be, on his day, he's a good keeper. But like you said correctly, you know, he does have clangers in him. And look, I think if you go back to when Arsenal had Ramsdale and Raya, you know, or look at Liverpool when they had Kelleher and Alisson and obviously Marmadashvili that was coming in, then you can see that like the top teams usually don't really want to have too much of a steep drop off from their first goalkeeper to their second. Right. Yeah. But it's also a very, very difficult juggling act because it's not really a rotation position. And even when Arsenal tried that I think it was last or season before last now, if we're considering the one that's just finished as last season, with Ramsdale, it doesn't really work out. You can't really rotate your goalkeeper. So you have to sort of do your best to find one that's willing. As I say, traditionally, that means you either go for someone very young who hasn't, you know, got the sort of demands to be playing it, or you go for someone at the tail end of their career, like what we did with Fraser Forster or Joe Hart. But yeah, look, I mean, Kepa's a good goalkeeper, but I don't think he's a great goalkeeper at all.
I mean, Arsenal don't know. Arsenal, you know, as I said, historically, you know, when you've got Leno and Martinez, and then you've got Ramsdale, and then you've got Raya, and you've got they just keep producing the goalkeepers. It's a position that they're not they're not going to shirk on. What I don't understand is why Kepa wouldn't want to be a first choice for Bournemouth for that money, or why Bournemouth didn't actually want to pay up the £5 million to make him their first choice. Seems a strange one for me. It was Kepa, I'm trying to remember now, you can remind me in the chat there if I'm wrong, that refused to come off in the cup final? I'm sure it was him. There's been a bit of a goalkeeper merry-go-round. We got Flecken that's gone off to Germany, and then you've got what's his name, Kelleher, who's coming to Brentford. I was just saying, Sean, I'm surprised that for only $5 million, Bournemouth didn't want to trigger that after he spent the season there. Does that say more about Kepa as a goalkeeper, or Bournemouth's inability to spend £5 million on a keeper?
No, Bournemouth can spend $5 million if they want to, but I think that Bournemouth are the sort of team that, Kepa's only ever going to be a temporary sort of gap stop or fill in. He's not good enough. Yeah. So I think that Bournemouth are probably, they'll probably go out and look for a goalkeeper from some corner of Europe or the world that will, come in and do a good job for probably similar money, but that has a much higher, brighter future. I think that Kepa's not going to have a sell-on fee. Kepa's not going to, wow anybody, and his mistake proneness, his bozo gene, is something that you can't really rely on too much. So, like I say, at best, it's going to be a fill-in for anybody. But I don't think he'll ever. I think at best he'll probably play, 5 or 6 games for Arsenal next season.
He'll play in the Carabao Cup. He'll play
something like that. Yeah, exactly.
What's the next one you've got?
Well, keeping to the list that you sent me over, mate. Then we got the Ryan Aït-Nouri deal. Manchester City getting their left back position sorted. £36 million. It looks like it's done and dusted. Top draw player, in my opinion. Really like him. When Tottenham were linked with him last month, if Tottenham were looking for an out-and-out left back to play, as a traditional fullback model and just sit in behind your doggy and compete, because Destiny Doggy is very injury prone. So I had absolutely no issues with Ryan Aït-Nouri. He's going to City. It shows you the caliber of the player that he's, and also the kind of desire for him to get in there and mix it up. Manchester City obviously have different options at centre back. Sometimes they can play sort of 3 or 4 centre backs in their back line, because that's the sort of adaptability that Pep Guardiola likes to play. But in Ryan Aït-Nouri, they have a traditional fullback who can get forward. He's danger. He's fast. He's balanced defensively. He's solid in the pocket. And I think he'll be a really good and interesting signing for him. I'm surprised that it's £36 million though. I think that's a little bit punchy for a player that is, for that sort of model, that sort of mould. But
do you think when Man City, listen, I think he's a dangerous player. When you look at Man City now and their counter-attacking pace with Mamouche, El Nouri, and Reinders, who's come in and looks like Cherky, that hasn't been done yet. But I'd be amazed if that doesn't come in. That's some real attacking pace, counter-attacking threat. I think it's a very good, a good deal. And I think in the current market, he's an Algerian international. What does that mean? But I think I've been very, very impressed with him since he's been at Wolves, and he's one of their standout players, really. I think he adds a lot to Manchester City, for their squad depth as well. And I think he'll play quite a lot of games. I don't think he's going to be, because what quite often happens with Pep, he signs players and quite often they sort of stay in the background for 3 or 4 months while he gets used to his system.
Yeah.
Mamouche is probably an exception to that rule, who's been sort of thrown in. But no, I think it's a good buy. And in this market, expensive market, I don't think it's massively over the top, personally.
I just think he's an entirely different player to like Josko Gvardiol, right? Who came in as a centre back, but was then kind of shoehorned out there because at the time Pep was sort of experimenting or adapting his philosophy to kind of like, I think even Thomas Frank mentioned it, like that Pep Guardiola was the first guy to go to that kind of 4 centre back role.
Yeah.
As just an adaptation of the structure. So, I don't know if this is a signal that Guardiola is going to change it up again next year and do something a little bit more traditional, go back to kind of, traditional fullback models or roles, or whether he literally just thinks that it's nice to have a little bit of balance, a little bit of options there. So, because Guardiola and Nate Nouri are just polar opposite type of players. There's absolutely nothing.
One's muscle, isn't it? One's muscle and power. Arriving at the back post. I mean, he scored some. He's goal contributions. Gavidal has been fantastic. He's got a great shot on him, good in the air.
Yeah.
Scores goals. What's not to like? I mean, he's money very well spent, I believe. Moving forward, he'll be 100% Man City.
Alongside, they got that Vitor Reis, didn't they? They bought him from Brazil, and
a bit young now, but he's a top player.
Yeah, and Kuzanov as well. So they're certainly looking to.
Is that the Palmeiras? I think it's the Palmeiras boy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's a defender. They brought in January, and then obviously they bought Kuzanov at the same time. So obviously, Kyle Walker, wasn't he out in loan in Milan? But I think he's probably going to move on this summer on a permanent role. And it's going to be an interesting sort of pivot. When you make wholesale changes to your defence, all in the same sort of summer, is going to be that kind of acclimation process, getting familiar with each other's games. I don't know if they all speak the same language or if they can all communicate. I've got no idea about the specifics there, but it's going to be interesting. But look, when Manchester City are doing what they're doing at the top end of the pitch with the players that you've already mentioned, it's going to be, just when you think that you maybe have come to understand how Manchester City are going to play football, I think it's entirely likely that you might see a new version of City ball, if you like, this season coming.
I might be one of the minority, but I'm actually looking forward to the Club World Cup. Because I want to see how Man City do against South American teams, and I want to see how Man City, with the acquisitions that they've got, are going to line up. Oscar Bobb's coming back. Rodri, I'm not sure how far away Rodri is at the moment. But
not familiar. Don't know.
I actually think that City, although they've had a very poor season by their standards, I reckon they should still be in the mix somewhat moving forward in the competition.
For sure. It just feels to me like both of the two juggernauts of the Premier League. And forgive me if you're an Arsenal fan watching, but I don't care if I say this out loud. I don't consider Arsenal to be as big a juggernaut as City and Liverpool. But I think that they're both going through massive rebuilds.
Just lost 300 subscribers.
No. We're very reasonable. I think that Liverpool and Manchester City are both going through monster rebuilds at the same time. But we're going to come on to Liverpool in a minute, mate. But so it's just going to be fascinating to see. And I agree with you. I think the Club World Cup is a lovely little way to see how people sort of step up or match up against each other. Just while we're on to we're still talking about Manchester City. Story out this morning that Newcastle United are very happy to take Jack Grealish away from City, but only on a loan basis.
Yeah.
Interesting. So does that first of all, what do you think about him going to Newcastle? Second of all, would you see that as a potential, like a sign that maybe Anthony Gordon is of interest to Arsenal, or is it just going to be someone to squeeze in there and mix it up on the left-hand side?
No, I think it's just to mix it up. They need bodies in for the Champions League and to maintain a top 4 assault. They need both. They learned last time, didn't they? They went into the Champions League and fell off and found it difficult to balance the two. No, I think Arsenal will more likely go for someone like Nico Williams, personally, and maybe get rid of Martinelli. That would be my sort of guess on the matter. Talking about Club World Cup, Chelsea, though, have made an offer for Gittens. I'm not sure whether or not they can get this one over the line. They made an offer to Borussia Dortmund. Again, another lovely little player.
Jamie Gittens, yeah. Unfortunately, with that kind of conveyor belt of talent coming out from teams like Dortmund, Leipzig, you just wonder, even like Matisse Tell, for example, right, is another player that, the reputation of these players in Germany, sometimes they come over and they smash it out of the park, but a lot of the times they don't, right? And so obviously, Jaden. I think the comparisons between Jadon Sancho and like Jamie Gittens are going to be there. Like English boys going over to Germany, playing for Dortmund, doing really well there, coming over. Yeah. I know, but Jadon Sancho obviously, it didn't work out for him at Man United. He went to Chelsea, had a sort of somewhat decent spell, I guess, for a little while, a couple of months, but then he fell off again. And I hear what you're saying about his mentality or his personality. Maybe he's got some issues there. And I'm not saying it's obviously a like for like. I'm just saying that the comparisons will be there because of the kind of similar stories of the two players. But for me, Gittens looks like a really handy player. But if he does come over, like I say, the recent transitions of young players from Germany that come over in the wing and play for English Premier League, top Premier League teams, they haven't been that successful. So it'll be interesting to see.
He's a good player. He was a good player before he went, and I believe he's a very good player now. Sancho, again, same thing. Why would Chelsea not even pay up the 25 million for him, for Sancho, to complete the Sancho deal? In this day and age, a player that's cost over 70 million pounds, they would rather pay a 5 million pound fine than take him. I think that says it all. And now Manchester United are going to have the issue that wherever he goes, no one is paying his wages. No one's going to pay the fee. So they're caught in a dilemma at the moment. And I think United thought that Bruno Fernandes was definitely going, and they're already out spending the money.
Do you know how much Gittens on the notes you sent me? It doesn't mention. You know what the bid is for Jamie Gittens?
I can't remember off the top of my head, Sean. If I'm brutally honest, mate,
I'll have a look for us.
It was. I did have it. Not having it there.
£50 million apparently. Chelsea reached agreement with £50 million Jamie Gittens just before the transfer deadline. I know £50 million not bad money, is it? Let's be honest. Like in terms of what do you get for £50 million these days with him? Obviously, like I said, there's risk. There's risk with any kid. There's risk with any transfer from overseas. There's risk with loads of things. But he's £50 million. It seems like, dare I say it? What a £50 million? What are you comparing him to? Well, you're not quite going to get Mbeumo for 50 when it comes to him in a minute. You could have got Brennan Johnson for just about 50 million a couple of years ago. So there's that. That's the kind of spectrum, right? Somewhere in that kind of talent pool. Where do you place Gittens?
Yeah, that's why I said Nuri for me at 36 million seems reasonable money. 35 million.
Oh, 35 million. So I'm reading off of one of the articles. £50 million. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think 35 mil. I know
that better value than
Manchester United were looking at trying to do a swap to get Jadon Sancho back to Borussia Dortmund and take Gittens in his place. I personally would rather have Gittens. What's the other one? Go on.
Before we move on, do you think if Jadon Sancho was to go back to Germany, that he would get back to his best in that league? Or do you think what's changed with him isn't necessarily the transference into the league where the league's different and he's lost his friends or the environment's just whatever, but it was the money and maybe the kind of having everything too soon, all of that stuff that changed his level of work ethic and maybe distracted him a little bit?
I think too many outside distractions. It's look, you got to live clean. You want to live clean, you'll have a good football life, right? Live the life, eat the life, yeah. And then when you're finished, go and do what you got to do. You look at someone like Eze, he's a pure footballer, right? He goes to football, does charity work, believes in God, all the rest of it. No outside distractions. He's not out getting pissed. I mean, that's not all footballers. I'm just saying, and then there's the extreme of that. He's the extreme one way. And then the extreme the other way is the outside distractions and, you're on massive money. Yeah, and, you're on big money and, the distractions are obvious. If you think back to the sort of shit you got up to at, 22, 23, let alone 18, getting 100 grand a week, can you only imagine the carnage? I listen, I sympathise with them. I do feel like the clubs should do a lot more for support and advice internally, while they're having training sessions, instead of going home at like 1 o'clock, keep them in for an hour and have someone come in and talk about money, outside influences, stories of wild.
Definitely have that sort of stuff in college football in America, for example, for the players that are likely to get drafted. They have advisors come in and give them, heads up on what's to come and how to avoid the pitfalls. And look, I think you make a good point that I don't know anything about Jadon Sancho or Jamie Gittens' personality, but I think there is the other. I mean, listen, there's no smoke without fire. Probably, like a lot of people are saying that are close to him, or close in that environment, saying that he has got, there's issues, I guess, there.
Yeah.
But I think there's also the other consideration that there's just sometimes horses for courses, right? Some people can do it at any level on any style of football. Look at the amount of players that have come out of Holland and don't do it here. Look, there's the obvious differences in the pace of game between the Serie A, for example, and the Premier League or even La Liga. Like there's sometimes it's not necessarily down to like behavioural issues. It might just be down to that they're more comfortable in certain environments, and the speed and the style of the football is what they've grown up with, and they're just more familiar with it, and they're not given enough time to acclimate, to a different system before people write them off. That might be part of it as well.
Yeah, listen, he's got God-given talent, but you have to have application. I mean, that goal he scored, for example, in the final against Betis. I mean, that was a beautiful goal. He's got it in his arsenal. Anyway, what was the one we were looking about?
Well, the next one, of course, is Bryan and Mbeumo's on the list here, mate. I mean, we talked about him a few times now, but yesterday Manchester United fans were all right. Like I was in a few Man United chats, and they were all saying, I was winding them up, saying, we're going to steal your boy. Thomas Frank's coming in, and they're all going, please, Sean, don't do that. Don't be like that, mate. You know that Tottenham are not a threat in the transfer market with Manchester United. It's done. It's over. It's game over. He's coming to Man United this morning. There's a lot of stories out from recent. There's a lot of people, mate, that are saying actually, and look, by the way, Thomas Frank is 10-1 odds on now, right? So that deal is done. Like you're going to get 10 pence for every pound that you risk. It's like Frank's coming in all like almost entirely certain.
I've not wavered, mate.
Yeah, I know. So, but if Manchester United can't buy him, can't get the deal done in the next 48 hours, 72 hours. Because maybe they need to sell a player or two, make up some wiggle because they can't necessarily, the finances just are a little bit complicated for them. Do you think there's any chance that Tottenham could come in and steal that one?
You'd love to think it, wouldn't it? You'd love to think it. It would change because I would say right now the Spurs fan base are in meltdown over the disappearance of Ange, then double meltdown with the appearance of Frank, who they deem not good enough. But if he brought in Bryan and Mbeumo and managed to secure that on his relationship with him, I think the pendulum would swing in favour of Frank.
150 grand a week, right? It would immediately put him as third, I think.
Look, I don't care.
Currently second top earner.
We're paying Timo Werner 170 grand a week.
100%.
All right, so put it to bed. If you can pay Timo Werner 170 grand a week, you can play Bryan Mbeumo 200 grand a week if that's what it takes. That's it. Look, Man United fans, Spurs fans, in fact, any fans really, if you watch Bryan Mbeumo, you know that if he's in your team, you're in your squad, it's going to cause havoc. I liked him 3 years ago. I really liked him a lot. And when I was asking about him, they said, great. His issue is his finishing. And we now see that he's worked on his finishing, and his finishing has been, fantastic. So,
20-goal a season guy in a team like Brentford. No disrespect to Brentford. And look, Thomas Frank, I'm warming up to the idea of Thomas Frank. I'm not sure if it's because I've changed my mind on the concerns. They're not even concerns. They're just unknowns, is what I've always said. There's a lot of unknowns about Thomas Frank. But as the sun is setting and the story about Ange is now becoming distant, the proximity to the environment of what we've gone through is becoming further and further away. And I just love a clean slate. I love a clean slate. And so it's nice to get excited about what might be. And actually, mate, I was going to ask you this, but this isn't a Tottenham stream, but just real brief. Do you think from a Tottenham fan perspective that a lot of the players that maybe haven't sort of spread their wings fully under the Ange system, because the traditional Ange system, and or I'll include even the park the bus model that we saw latterly, that this is they've had their wings clipped a little bit, and under Thomas Frank with a bit of organisation, telling players like Pedro Porro, just go and do your thing, mate. Get on the right, overlap, get to the byline, whip the ball in. Less of the kind of the weird, you've got to be on each other's wavelength, and we got to stick to this framework and abdicate the responsibility of the specifics onto the players who have to think outside the box all the time. Confusing. They've got enough to worry about. Under Frank, can you almost look at some of these players that might end up being like almost new players, reborn players in a Frank system?
Well, so first of all, it could be more complicated under Frank. They've got more learning to do.
Yeah,
the
true.
Reason being is because he plays with 3 at the back, 4 at the back, and 5 at the back. Okay, he plays with 1 up front. He plays with 2 up front. But what he will do, he will be on that training ground coaching one-on-one, improving players, and that's what we need. Spurs need a coach. I think all clubs need a coach, not a philosopher. And I think when all said and done, and for me was a philosopher. He wasn't hands-on. He wasn't on the training ground every day. He had Montgomery and others to do it. Thomas Frank will be on it. Just like Glasner, just like Iriola, on their improving players. And we can all see what Glasner did for Crystal Palace. And I think, I don't know, though, Sean, whether he's going to be given a chance by a lot of this Spurs fan base. One thing's for sure, no manager will ever be given the chance to lose 34 games in 2 seasons or 22 games in 1 season and still be in the job. But I'd like to think that, fans give him a chance. And I think the best way for him to win over the fans would be to get Bryan and Mbeumo there.
It'd be a lovely start.
Yeah, it'd be a lovely start for the fan base.
Got a super chat here. Thanks so much, Blaine. Guys, by the way, there's 370 people here right now. It's the new record for such a small channel. It's obviously our second channel. So if you haven't already, please smash the like. It really does help the algorithm find new potential people that might love it. And also smash the subscribe if you haven't. By the way, if you want to comment and you're just limited by the fact that you haven't subscribed, if you just hit the subscribe, you'll have immediate access. And if you then don't, if you just want to come in to tell us that we're wrong, then you can unsubscribe straight away afterwards. It's okay, but please don't do that. Give us a chance to win you over.
Yeah, can I just say that some people seem to think that subscribe means you're paying for something. You're not. A subscribe is just, it notifies you when we go live, and it just sends you a message that we're live. So you'll always see our shows. Even if you come back from work late, you can watch them later. That's all it is. So hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, comments, likes, they all help the algorithm, help us grow for us to bring you more content.
Yeah, appreciate that.
England.
We've got a super chat here from Blaine to go through. Blaine, thank you so much, mate, for the super chat. This is for Johnny. I'll let you go for this one. Gentlemen, with all the uncertainty at the board level, no manager yet appointed, and the clamour over Club World Cup players. A lot of alliteration there. When will we sign our first player? Danso excluded before end of June. What do you think, Johnny?
I think we will do our dealing between now and the 1st of July. And we won't sign till July. I don't think we'll sign till the first week of July. Will be our first signing. But believe me, that even though the transfer window's closed, deals are being done in principle. Negotiations are being done in principle. Even though Spurs haven't got a manager at the moment, they know that Thomas Frank, they would have had conversations with Frank. They would have been speaking about it. He'll want to assess the squad. But knowing Thomas Frank's known as the professor, I can guarantee you that he would have already, when he does his assessment of the team he plays, and like Andrew said, we're not interested in the opposition. We play our game. Thomas Frank studies the opposition. So it's an interesting one. And
it should be part of the course, to be entirely honest. Like if you're a manager of a football team, just worrying about yourself and not worrying about the threats or the opportunities that other teams present seems a little bit like you're doing half a job.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting that there was a comment by one of Thomas Frank's ex-coaches who left last year, that where he said, that we used to joke of all the clubs, if we were ever going to leave Brentford for another club, it was going to be Spurs, because that was our favourite club.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing, is a genuine thing.
Yeah.
And so the fact that is the case, I think he would be quite au fait with the players. But I don't expect anyone to be signed until after July the 1st.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised Manchester United moved so quickly. They were probably in a panic that someone might move ahead of them for Cunha.
100%. Oh, that's the thing, mate. I think that, like I've said a few times, I believe that the general thesis with fans is that the early bird catches the worm, and that, if you're not doing business out of the traps early, then you're just losing all the low-hanging fruit. And to a degree, I can absolutely get on board the logic behind that sentiment. But there's a lot of players out there, and sometimes you're handcuffed by your own scenarios, your own sort of circumstances, and players might not necessarily want to just move immediately. Maybe they want to think about what their options are, see what's going on. So there is a notion that sometimes patience can be a virtue. There's usually a flutter of things at the start, a little bit of a boring period in the middle, and then heavy lifting at the end as well. So I would hope that we're going to get our first one through, or at least I know that the second window doesn't open until the 1st of July, right? So, but I would hope that we will have everything like a here we go. So, Blaine, if you're talking about like a here we go rather than lifting the shirt, then I would hope that there's something before July. But yeah, we shall see, mate. Tottenham never surprised me. Let's thank you so much.
The manager 100% this week. 100%. But no, I can't see. I can't see anything till the 1st of July. We're going to hear lots of rumours anyway. So tell
me. Next rumour for you, mate, is we'll come back to the England thing at the end. But so Garnacho is a player that Manchester United need to move on in order to make room for whatever else they've got to do. I don't know if they're held up on the Mbeumo deal because because they need to get some clarity on what they're making room. If not, then so be it. But certainly, if they want further transfers, then people will have to leave. One of those is Garnacho, and guess who's come a calling? Saudi Arabia. Al Nassr are looking at bringing him and taking him out of his apparent nightmare at Manchester United. At the same time, Manchester United are also one step closer in their bid to sign Victor Gyökeres this summer. Manchester United are busy, mate. They're not going to allow any more fuck ups, essentially, right?
Sean, explain to me how Jim Ratcliffe comes in January and he said there's no money. We're almost going bankrupt. He's got rid of his cutting wages, got rid of all the bonuses for the people that have been there 20 years, sacked Alex Ferguson from his paid job, got rid of hundreds of staff, about 470 staff, culling everywhere. Yeah, he's got Casemiro, 300 grand a week plus, Rashford, 300 grand a week plus, Fernandes, 300 grand a week plus. I mean, keep going. Jadon Sancho, right up there, 300 grand a week plus.
Yeah.
They need to get rid of players big time, and yet they can't because they're on massive wages. And there lies the problem for Man United. And I think they really did truly believe that Bruno Fernandes was going to go to Saudi, and they'd use that 100 million to finance all the other deals. I think they desperately need to get rid of players. And Garnacho is another player like Jadon Sancho. Unbelievable, great talent. But, when you're dyeing your hair blonde at like 19, whatever, and you're bigging yourself up already, you need to be humble. Humble Garnacho isn't. There was rumours he was going to go to Napoli. And then there was rumours he was going to Spain. I think if he carries on in the way he is, he might be like a hot potato where, yes, he's got a lot of talent, but do we need a disruptor in our squad? Because he looks like a disruptor. He behaves like a disruptor. And
I can't understand why he was unhappy. The rumours, again, I don't know if there was a quote attached, but I remember seeing for like,
I think he said it. Yeah,
that he thought that his playing time or the way he was being used was unacceptable to him. Yeah. I think didn't Manchester United play like 58 games last season and he played in 52 of them?
He played
something silly like that, right?
He played a lot of games, and I think rightly so, Ruben Amorim doesn't want people come along with attitude. Why Rashford's gone? Why, Jadon Sancho's not there? There are reasons for these things. So and he's just another one, a nail in the coffin. It's about the culture, and Man United have got a lot of offloading to do. I mean, I can't see Casemiro in the Champions League. Maybe a Wheeler. He's not in the Champions League. But where's he going to play? This is the thing. You're right, Miss Bunny. Right, Casemiro will run his contract down.
How long has he got left on his contract? Let's have a look.
The end of next year, isn't it? Is it the end of next year?
His contract.
With no Champions League football, right? There's going to be a lot of players on big money not getting games.
100%, mate. 100%. His contract ends end of next year, July 30th or June 30th, 2026. So I mean, he's on fortunes. But like we've said this 1,000 times, man. I think you said it at the start of the show. Like the most difficult thing about when you sign a player for 300 grand a week is that you immediately remove the ability to sell them during that contract to anything other than about 3 or 4 teams in world football. Right. So there's that risk. Like, and if the player ends up being a sulk, or just shit, or injury prone, or whatever, if he ends up not working out for you, then all you can ever do is loan them out and cover the majority of the wages, right? And so those things have to be baked into any club that have these ambitions to move up the table, because Manchester United, look, they earn more money from match day than any other team in world football, even though their stadium's falling down. And they've got an owner that's like penny pinching left and right, which is embarrassing at times. But if they do have a lot of talent, and if they move some of those players on that Amorim doesn't seem to value anymore, or they can get a few of these higher earners out, by hook or by crook,
subsidizing
for sure. But it makes room for a player like we're about to speak about, which is Gyökeres, right? Imagine if Man United can start next season, August the 10th, whenever it is, with Mbeumo, Gyökeres, and Cunha as their front three,
with Ahmad,
with Bruno Fernandes in the 10. Ahmad can come in off the bench, or whatever, but Bruno Fernandes in the 10. Manuel Ugarte, which a load of people poo-poo and think he isn't a good player. He is a good player. He's a very, very good player. Sometimes it just takes a little, like the acclimation process, but he is a fucking great player. And then if they can go and get a goalkeeper, and they have got no European football next season, there's no reason to think that this could not, like, they've gone from rock bottom to then it's like hitting the trampoline, isn't it? And then going back up again,
I think they need to concentrate on that defence. I think that defence needs some work. Lindelof. I mean, Maguire's been their top guy this year. Yoro, lovely player. He's going to be a proper baller. But I think they need work. Gyökeres would be the absolute cherry on the cake for him. Amorim must be a draw. Amorim must be, spinning a story there to get them in.
Portuguese players, they make. Portuguese players are so cultured. Like the standard of the league over there, obviously there's only 3 or 4 teams that really sort of do it, and there's always 1 or 2 of them that are falling off temporarily and coming back up. But Portuguese players are so cultured and are a good fit generally for the Premier League.
It's like Brazil. It's like the same level of a conveyor belt. Every single generation, there's another unbelievable group of players that come through.
Look at how much have Benfica raised in transfer fees since 2010. It's like 1.3 billion or something crazy. They're happy to sell players. João Felix, 100 million quid. Right, there's a never-ending list of them, and Benfica still, like, they do that every year. They'll sell someone for 100 million, and then they still go and win the league or come second. Right, it's bonkers.
Well, they go to South America and they find their gems. They come from South America, Portuguese country, Brazil. They come in and speak Portuguese.
Similar environment,
Yeah. So, it works for them. Gyökeres, though, for me is an interesting one, because a bit like Harry Kane, every season, they thought it was going to be a one-season wonder, and yet he just keeps doing it and doing it and doing it. And I just like to understand why no one is rushing to get him when, he's banging in the goals.
Well, I think he was one that said he wants to, or at least the rumours were that he wanted to kind of like consider his options. And isn't that what made Arsenal go, fuck it, okay, we're going to go for Benjamin Sesko?
Maybe. We forgot, listen, we so many clubs here, we forgot about Rasmus Højlund, right, who I reckon will go back to Italy. And then you've got Anthony. I mean, like the amount of money in wages that Man United have flushed down the toilet in transfer fees and what they're paying in wages now is absolutely mind-boggling. Honestly,
is Anthony only on loan?
Yes,
Betis, isn't it? Yeah.
Afford to buy him. They're paying a percentage of his wages as well. I mean, their Betis couldn't afford his wage.
So Lucky Singh saying he thinks that Anthony and Rasmus are going to go to Italy.
Well, I think Rasmus will go for a lot less than what they paid for him back to Italy, but I think Anthony will just could go to Italy, but on loan.
Yeah.
You're talking about wages and risks. What Liverpool are prepared to play Florian Wirtz.
Oh, let's move on.
£855,000 a week over a 5-year contract. As you were about to say before, I think the latest bid of 118 million euros has just been rejected.
Yeah. Apparently, according to Liverpool FC. Well, according to This Is Anfield, which is like a top Liverpool blog.
Yeah.
So, and that was an hour ago. £118 million fee. Leverkusen reject the third bid, but £118 million fee is the next one that they're going to make. That's the story. Sorry. I mean, obscene amounts of money. There'll be a lot of kickers in there as well because Leverkusen want 150 million. I don't know if that's euros or pounds, but maybe the 150 million euros is about 120 million pound, give or take. So, like, it's maybe they're getting close, but there'll be some kickers in there as well. You have a lot of money, Johnny, for a kid. Like, he's a brilliant kid. Don't get me wrong, but like, how many times of the top 10 transfers of all time, how many of them have been monster successes? Not many. Right? Not many.
Just not get beaten the other day, 3-0. Yeah. Funny that, wasn't it? By who was it by? Was it Norway?
No, Spain? No.
Norway?
Hang on.
I can't remember now.
Let's have a look.
Just the day before yesterday. It wasn't Norway, was it? Or was it Norway? Can't remember.
Germany.
Florian Wirtz was playing.
Was it Portugal? Who was it?
Yeah, Portugal. Yeah, you're right. Portugal. I think it was Portugal.
3-0. Was that the one that Germany are playing right now as we speak? It's half time. Germany versus France. Didn't realise that.
Yeah, no, they're in the Nations League, isn't it?
Yeah, the third place playoff. Portugal beat Germany 2-1. Was that when Ronaldo did an overhead kick? Was that one?
They won that one. And
Norway beat Italy 3-0. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, Wirtz. Well, Norway beat Italy 3-0. Sorry. Thanks, Reese. Florian Wirtz starts the game. But is he worth? I mean, you work that out. That is 120. What have we got here? We got 55. We got 355 grand a week. Sean, you want to work that one out over the contract? 355 grand a week.
That's do it now. That's 18 million pound. 18 million pound a year
times 5.
So 90 million quid
plus the fee. I mean, you're talking. I mean, almost like
240 million pound transfer. Plus there'll be bonuses. Plus to the player and the kickers to the club. It might end up being like 270 million pound over 5 years. Obviously, you know. Like he's a top talent, mate. But when you get to that money, you have to be almost perfect. You have to be almost superhuman to justify that, don't you?
Yeah.
And what happens then to their players that are already in the 10? What happens to like a Cody Gakpo? What happens to
Diaz isn't going? They said hands off Diaz because the Saudis tried to buy Diaz.
Well, they've got to make room somewhere.
Jota, maybe.
I'd take Jota. I'll take him in a fucking heartbeat, mate. That guy is insane at coming off the bench and just nicking in for a goal.
What about Darwin Núñez?
Yeah, he's got to be the sacrificial lamb, surely.
It could be Darwin Núñez, be the one to go. But listen, look, they got lovely on that left-hand side. You've got Frimpong and Conor Bradley. Lovely little player.
Frimpong will be on the right-hand side, but they're looking to sign Kirkes, aren't they?
Frimpong and Bradley, fighting out for the position, and Kirkes
will come in on the left-hand side. I mean, he's top draw. Very little risk there, you'd think.
With some little players coming in from Hungary, with Sobotsai's from Hungary as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, what's going to happen to him? He's going to have to go and sit a little bit deeper, isn't he?
Well, yeah, he is, but I mean, I think one more Hungarian, they can make some goulash. They've got two. They've got Kirkes and Sobotsai. It's not often you get.
Never the second out the third. Did we talk? We talked about Newcastle going for Jack Grealish, didn't we? We spoke about him already, right? So let's sort of talk a little bit about bigger stuff here. Arsenal sporting director Andrea Berta is seeking to finalise new longer-term deals for 4 key Arsenal stars. Gabriel's committed his future to the club. Saka and Saliba have held positive talks over fresh terms. Ethan Nwaneri, I've never known how to say that, which one's the silent letter, and Miles Lewis-Skelly are in line for new deals, which would also include lucrative pay rises. It's one thing to be able to sign new players, mate. It's also another thing to keep your current players happy, and that's the way you do it, right? Pay them more and tie them down.
Yeah, I mean, Skelly and Nwani, two top players. I mean, I think Ethan and Nwani will really shine next season. I think we'll see a lot more of him. And Skelly, what was it? 2 sending offs in 3 games when he started. He's calmed down a bit, got his England call up. Arsenal protecting top talent. I mean, they are producing from that academy lots and lots of top players, and the ones that even don't make it are going for big money. In Nketiah, Smith Rowe, the list is endless. Alex Iwobi, £35 million for a player that was never going to play at that level. So that's going to help them fund it. I expect Arsenal to be massive spenders come the reopening of the transfer window. They've got Zubimendi, who's going to dovetail with Mourinho to relift that fantastic pivot they had at Real Sociedad. The two of them, they'll be a threat. But no, Arsenal doing the right thing, spending the money, big money in the transfer window.
It looks like they're landing on. Looks like they're landing on Benjamin Sesko. Deals look like they're progressing there. Let me ask you. Look, we don't often sort of pay too much, or we haven't really. We should pay a little bit more attention to some of these, also ran teams that are trying to champ at the bit to get up the ladder a little bit. We talk about their players that are leaving, but there's an interesting story coming out of Bournemouth around. I brought the link up saying someone put a comment in there saying, "Why is no one going after Johan Bakayoko?" Well, Bournemouth are, right, and I think is a player that we spoke about him, Johnny, last summer and about 18 months ago. I've loved Johan Bakayoko. I thought he was going to go to Forest last summer. He didn't. If he had done, that would have been an even bigger boon for their chances last year. But Bournemouth know what they're doing in terms of their talent is great. I think that they can operate in this little market where Bakayoko, there's probably too many unknowns. He's not quite of the caliber of getting into an Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea team yet, or Man City team, etc. I'd be more than happy to see Johan Bakayoko at Tottenham. I don't know if you would.
He's a good player. How old is he now? About 22, I think.
Yeah, he's young. He's so tricky. He's got that. We were talking about this earlier. That sort of muscle twitch. The fibers, the way that he can do that. He can move his feet 15 times a second. It's hard to keep up. And he's got a lovely finish on him when he gets in the right position. A little bit erratic at times. Sometimes makes the bad decision when the easier one would have been the correct one. But if Bournemouth go in that direction, Johnny, does that give you some sort of indication that maybe someone like Semenyo or Justin Kluivert, one of those sorts of players? I know Kluivert's a striker, but is there going to be some sort of movement there in what Bournemouth already have?
Yeah, they've sold Huijsen. They're selling Kirkes. I think they've got very good talent ID at the club. I mean, what he's done, Areola, with Kluivert has been fantastic. The replacement for Solanke up front, Evan Nilsson, he's been very good. I think they'll utilise that money very well. I can potentially see Semenya or a Kluivert potentially going. Potentially later on in the transfer window, because they are talented. That's for sure. Semenya fell off a little bit towards the last 5 or 6 games, along with Kluivert, which coincided with Bournemouth tapering off a bit towards the end there. But, there's some good players. Look, I think of the teams coming up from the Championship, I think Leeds are, in my opinion, without doubt, going to be the strongest of the teams. New owners last season, getting their feet under the table. I think they will make some loan acquisitions, which will help them. I think they learned a lot from their lesson coming up last season.
Yeah,
I can't see Manor Solomon staying at the club. I can see him coming back to Spurs and trying to earn his Spurs there. But I don't know about what you think, but I think of the clubs coming up. For me, Scott Parker, he's going to be parking the bus. Parking the bus, no pun intended. But yeah. I think, Burnley hardly conceded a goal last season. They're very defensive-minded, looking to steal a goal on the counter. It's going to be interesting. I don't hold out much hope for Sunderland. I've got to be honest with you. No disrespect, Sunderland fans, but with
all three teams they're going to come up and going to go back down, mate. In my opinion,
well, I don't think. I think Leeds might survive. I think Joe Bellingham leaving. Joe Bellingham leaving was a nail in Sunderland's coffin, unfortunately.
But, you can't lose if you're coming up. You can't lose your best player. You've got to keep your best player, and then you have to find a few others that can add some value. But we shall see with that stuff. Just quickly, another story that's emerging from Crystal Palace. We know obviously they're trying to do whatever it takes to make sure they can play in the Europa League. I really feel genuinely sorry for Crystal Palace that they're getting the book thrown at them.
Yeah.
When the book wasn't thrown at Manchester United when Sir Jim Ratcliffe is the owner of was it Montpellier? I forget the team that he's got a slice in thing. And obviously the RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg. I mean, those two participate in the Champions League every single year. And this notion that there's like a Chinese wall between the two clubs, and so therefore there's no conflict. It's just clever structuring. It's clever accounting, but in a structural capacity, because I think in the history of, in the last 30 years, there's no two clubs that have had more player transfers between each other than Leipzig and Salzburg, right? So it's just madness, isn't it?
It goes on in broad daylight, just like we've gone on before about the relationship with Saudi PIF between Newcastle and Chelsea, and how Saudi PIF own Newcastle, yet they are a major shareholder in Clearlake Capital who hold Chelsea, and their relationship between Aston Villa and Chelsea and the Saudis. It's incestuous. It's going on in broad daylight. I'm interested to see. Look, what we do know is, someone like Chelsea who, don't have a big stadium, don't have a shirt sponsor, right? And yet somehow, despite not having a shirt sponsor, not having a big stadium, they managing to spend more money than anybody.
Yeah,
laughable.
I mean, we know how and why that happens, but it is what it is in the day. But I just feel really sorry for Crystal Palace, and look, it looks like they're going to be losing Mark Gahey at some point this summer. And the story's out this morning that they're looking to replace him with, by the way, an absolute baller, Sporting Lisbon's Diamandi, who's a player that I've looked at on the Y Scout for many an evening session when I'm bored, just flicking through highlights of talent, and he's really, really good. So if they can get hold of him, if they can bring him in to replace Mark Gahey, he'll be a player that in 12 months' time, Tottenham, Villa, Newcastle, all that, this usual crew will be saying we should be signing Diamandi. So he's an interesting one. And if Palace can replace Gahey with Diamandi, I mean that would be not a bad little replacement. What do you think, Johnny?
Well, they did very well. They got rid of Glasner, got rid of Anderson for 30-odd million and bought in Lacroix from Wolfsburg. And that was only about 18 million euros. And he was fantastic. He grew and grew and grew. Personally, I see Mark Gahey staying till next season and walking away on a free or signing a pre-contract in January. I do not see him going this window. I really don't. Unless some big, huge club comes in and pays stupid money. And I'm talking, Parish will want 70 million plus, easy.
Yeah.
So
Just to round it off, mate, there's a couple of stories out. I'm sure we're going to give it about as much. Oh, my phone's dead. I'm sure we're going to give it about as much attention as we usually do to these things. I'll probably put out a video about it, but it's probably got absolutely no truth at all to it. The story is that Tottenham Hotspur is the ex-Newcastle financier who is Amanda Staveley, and we've been hearing for months that she was signing NDAs with Tottenham, and that she was getting together some sort of consortium from Qatar, not related to QSI or QIA, but just wealthy businessmen. The story seems to have pivoted away from that to Malaysia. That Tottenham are now, that Amanda Staveley might be bringing in something on that regard. Again, I have no idea. I know it's come from my Spurs ITK hub, who always says he just pulls together bits and pieces from this guy and that guy. I think the person who said it was a person called Spurs Captain, who was given the credit for being right about several bits of news in 2024 and early 25. So, look, I don't know. Any thoughts on it, mate?
No,
no belief.
No, well, what I believe is the inward investment is 100% coming.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just how it's going to look. Could Staveley be involved? She's a third party. She doesn't have the money herself. She's just puts together consortiums and takes a cut or a couple percent or whatever a cut is of the deal. She's a wheeler dealer. Instead of hanging around in Wembley Market, she's hanging around in the higher echelons of multi-billionaires with her husband, who's a very wealthy guy, connections, wealthy people. But no, I think it will happen. But I'm not putting anything into this story as of yet, personally. That's myself. The other one was the I don't know what you guys.
The Ben Davies contract extension. Have we spoken about that yet?
Yeah, no, that's the one it was going to come to. So Ben Davies, 10-year servant to Tottenham Hotspur, and Spurs triggered a 1-year extension. Now, are we looking at it from a cynical point of view that after 10 years they've extended his contract 1 year so they can sell him to Wrexham, let him taste Hollywood for £5 million, which will help go towards Thomas Frank, wherever you live? Or is this to actually put him in the Premier League squad where he's like more is considered as a homegrown, as a naturalized player, but not in UEFA tournament? Or has he been kept on to run the book club? Because he's been running the book club for a number of years. Otherwise, if he left, there could be a load of illiterates in the club. Or last but not least, is he being kept on for a coaching role within the club, sort of like a player coaching role where he does his badges and he helps out?
I certainly think that he's but if you go to a back three, right, in terms of like a left-sided centre-back in a three, he never let himself down really under Conte. I think a lot of people always roll their eyes at him, and I've always stood by him. I've always defended him because I think he's dependable. He's never going to be someone that smashes, like gets back into the realms of top draw, top 10 centre-backs in the Premier League. None of that stuff. But he doesn't really let you down. When he does, it's mainly because he gets caught out in a high line by the pace problem. But that's not going to happen under Thomas Frank. So no. I think that there is some merit to the idea of keeping him around. I would also say it's a little bit strange, right? Like if you can be released on a free contract, then you're going to get whatever money, the £3-4 million, £2 million, whatever it is that Daniel Levy's hoping to get. If the intention here is to re-sign, then sell, then Ben Davies, by proxy, is giving up that money because he would get that money or some of it from anyone that was buying him on a free transfer. So if he's on board with the contract extension, and again, I don't know whether the extensions have to be mutually agreeable or if it's just, no, we're going to trigger it. If it's mutual, then I would probably assume that there's an intention to keep him and play him because, like I say, if he didn't have to sign it, then why would he do that just to forego whatever signing fee he was going to get wherever he went next?
Well, that for me, I think, after 10 years service, Sean, that the player deserves to be given a free transfer for his service for the couple of £1 million. Now the days are gone where, you have a testimonial. Maybe you'll get a new watch from Daniel.
Yeah.
No, I'm a bit surprised. Am I surprised? I would have thought after 10 years he deserves a free transfer, unless he's staying. If he's staying, no problem. I've got no problem with it. He's obviously not going to be part of the Champions League squad because he'll be taking up a foreign place, and that can't happen. So,
if there is the intention that he's going to stay to play, does that put the nail in the coffin with regards presuming that Romero is not going to leave either? And does that basically mean that there isn't going to be a centre-back like that kiss goodbye to your Piero Hincapié dream, Johnny, basically?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, let's wait up. Pierre Hincapié, man of the match against Brazil, or Ben Davies. Look,
Club Ben, we're going to call him from now on.
Club Ben. Look, I think we have to wait and see what Thomas Frank. Listen, Frank's going to go into that dressing room and he's going to get a stiffy because let's be honest, right? We can all moan about that squad, but he hasn't seen goods like this in his whole career. He really has. He's had the Mbuemos and he's had the Tonys and the Watkins, but they're individuals. They're the few of the individuals, But he hasn't seen them en masse. I mean, in two of the players he tried to sign, in Brennan Johnson and Archie Gray, I think he's going to be very happy with his lot. But someone's going to need to tap him on the shoulder and say, listen, Thomas, we'll be in the Champions League, mate.
Yeah.
And our last manager said you can't manage playing Carrier Bag and Ipswich in the same week. All right.
I hear you, mate. I hear you.
How are we gonna cope with playing?
Well, I'll tell you what, mate. Just to carry on with our little analogy that we use about getting to the party on time and the Uber driver. It looks like the Uber's turning up, right? And but Ben Davies is the current bird. We're gonna sniff around for a couple of 8 out of 10s at the bar that happen to be a left-sided centre back, and then we get to the bar and Ben Davies, who's like your current bird's also at the same party.
That's what we got. They've all left. That's the end of this party. The next party is not till the 1st of July. They've been raving for days at this party. Right? They're all smashed. They're all at this party.
It's a lock-in, and we can't get in until the 1st of July.
Honestly, by the time we get there on Tuesday, right, the party will be closed. Right, they'll be cleaning up. They'll be cleaning up the mess.
Yeah. Come back next week, guys. Come back next week.
Come back in July, mate, and we'll be having another party. No, listen, 100%. Look, some of the best women, some of the best players have already been taken and swept off their feet.
But there's always plenty more fish in the sea, mate. Plenty more fish.
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back. Eze hasn't turned up at the.
He's not there yet. Yeah,
he's not there yet.
He's at a different party right now. He's having a couple of shots. Johnny, mate, great show. Really enjoyed it. It's been fun. I think it's the record amount of live views for our little fledgling channel. It's 485 people at one point. Absolutely insane. I want to say massive thank you to everybody. Please do smash the like button for us. It's super important. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you tomorrow. Johnny, anything you want to say before we round off, mate?
Oh, just Thomas Tuchel was giving me Roy Hodgson vibes yesterday.
Yeah.
Flipping out.
1-0 against, who was it? Andorra. No, who was it playing? Andorra, yeah.
They don't even have any professional players. I mean, honestly.
A ski lift operator, a mechanic.
Part-time restaurateur. Yeah.
Connoisseur of the local wines in Andorra.
Garbage, man. I mean, honestly, it was embarrassing. A 50th minute Noni Makiweni assist for Harry Kane. Embarrassing. Roy Keane gave it to him big time.
100%.
And
appreciate you go 1961. Appreciate you, Miss Bunny. Ashley, mate. I'm not sure if you're a boy or a girl, but you got to move on, mate. You got to move on. The entire show, it's been spamming the chat, letting us know how like horrendously sad you are about where Tottenham are.
If his name was Tommaso Francanini, right? You've been cleaning yourself, okay? Unfortunately, his name is Thomas Frank.
We can call him Frankenstein. Tottenham season. It's alive! It's alive!
The tank engine, we've seen them all. And what about Frank and Spence? Seen that one?
Yeah, Frank and Spence, yeah. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Smash the like, smash the subscribe. Thank you, Blaine, for the super chat, mate. Very nicely, buddy. I really appreciate it. You can see me back on Spurs Talk Show for a live stream later on as well, guys, if you're interested. So keep a lookout for that. Cheers, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.